Greetings, brothers and sisters. So Thomas J. Hanks is back in the world of movies, working for Disney. Disney and Hanks together, what can we expect from this award-winning combo?
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the eighth wonder of...
There he is, playing GiPed0. I mean, he's making his comeback to a major motion picture after doing these kind of smaller films too. After there was sort of a firestorm about him on the internet, and he chooses a character named GiPed0.
Talk dirty to me.
Talk dirty to me. Sexy baby. Sexy baby. You are such a sexy baby. I'm proud of you, proud of you.
the world.
Look at him. Look at him puppet this little boy in front of him as he looks on gleefully.
The one and only Pinocchio!
Who's that dude? Boom. Look at it. It's magical.
Hello, Pops.
Whoa, look at him. Look at him. Look at the acting here. Look at how dark it is. I've just noticed him in the editing process. Look at how dark and dingy this is. I'm going to try to lighten it up. I think there's a way to do that on my Premiere Pro. I know there's a way. I just got to find it. But their movies, I've said this over and over again, you can barely see. It's so dingy. Poor lighting. Let me put the rest of these Disney images in of the, controversial Disney, Disney stuff that's been seen in cartoons for kids. But movies today, more often than not in TV shows, you can barely see what's going on. With all the special effects and all the CGI, the lighting is really poor. It's like, it adds a level of depression, like it's never fully light out or sunny out or bright. It's always dingy and dark. Okay, so I'm going to try to brighten it up here. It's not great. There's a brightness and contrast, and this is the difference. But still, look how dark this. I mean, everything's so dark and the lighting's so poor. And this is supposed to be a kid's film, right?
Jumping jeepers.
An almost real boy.
An almost real boy, and look at how excited he gets. He gets real excited when he has a real boy. Look at him hang from the doorknob.
Turn around. Let me get a look at you.
That's not the first time Tom J. Hanks has told a real boy to turn around so he could get a look at him.
I will be right here when you get back.
Pinocchio
Sure you will. We know you will, Tom.
is running around loose without a conscience. Can you imagine the trouble he's gonna get into? Wouldn't want
Exactly. Who would want that?
that on my conscience.
Everybody who's anybody wants to be a somebody.
But I want to be real.
Why on earth?
Why would anybody think this movie's going to sell? When my kids were homeschooling, we drove down to the ashram in Georgia from Virginia. And we listened to Pinocchio as a way for their homeschooling to continue while we were driving down. And it is absolutely horrific. It's a brutal book, not for kids. And it's depressing, and it's like a social commentary. It's like Gulliver's Travels. It's not, the goofy movie that Disney has made it into, right? And it's, very dark and just a real bummer. Like it's not it's not what we think of Pinocchio. And Pinocchio itself is dark, right? A little wooden boy that, lies all the time. His nose grows in some way to indicate his being, a deceiver, right? And then the island where all the bad boys go to. I mean, it's just, there's so much in these sleazy characters. It's not really a kid's movie. It's not a kid's story.
Earth would you want to be real when you can be famous?
Exactly. It's nothing better than fame.
Pinocchio should have been home by now.
You should have, Thomas GiPed0. I mean, come on, GiPed0. Just being such a GiPed0. at him look for Pinocchio. Look at that acting.
You will always be my real boy.
He'll always be his real boy.
A lie can really change a person, Pinocchio.
Oh, what's happening, Jiminy?
Looks like some sort of fairy magic. Kinda on the nose, if you ask me.
Meghan Markle beats Joe Rogan on Spotify U.S. podcast charts. She's got this thing called Archetypes. Let's see if there's anything here.
The heater, amount of time that she went downstairs, the heater in the nursery caught on fire. There was no smoke detector. Someone happened to just smell smoke down the hallway, went in, fire extinguished. He was supposed to be sleeping in there.
Wow, that's riveting. Telling her story. She's like kind of a boring person. And now she has like the #1 podcast. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's son Archie narrowly dodged a nursery fire during their 2019 South African tour. So to sell this podcast, they have a teaser of a story in which a room that Archie was yet to inhabit didn't have a smoke detector, and there was a fire from a heater that someone smelled smoke and put out the fire before he ever got in there. that's the story that she's, this is the compelling story that's going to make this the world's #1 Spotify podcast. We're going to come back to Joe Rogan because he did an interview with Mark Zuckerberg, and that's going to play into the Trump stuff. So let's get into the Trump stuff. Again, this kind of proves, I don't know what level of proof people need, that this has been a way to boost Trump in a way to regain his past following. The FBI, which is supposed to be out to get Trump, is doing something that could only help him, right? Help him with his base and also validate the story that the election was rigged against him, that the FBI and the intelligence community was against him, right? Remember what Chuck Schumer said? I got that meme here.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you.
Back at you.
Back at you.
Back at you.
So it said this: FBI found 184 classified documents in boxes returned by Trump's redacted affidavit says, prompting search. The affidavit used to justify the August 8th search at Mar-a-Lago says that the FBI found 25 documents marked top secret among 15 boxes. Trump gave back to the National Archives earlier this year. And so Trump gave back 15 boxes, and some of them had classified materials in them, which led them to believe that maybe he has more classified materials, but he gave them back. And so instead of asking him, which would be the first thing that you would do, and it never says they asked him for the documents. And so this is very, favorable for Trump, because if he left with classified materials, we know that Hillary did the same thing and then destroyed them, and she put stuff on separate servers and had them on Blackberries, and she didn't suffer any of these things, right? This was to lock her up, right? And it shows you the hypocrisy of both the Democrats and the Republicans, because the Democrats were saying it's no big deal when Hillary did it, but now they're, wanting Trump to be locked up. And the Republicans who are so mad about Hillary having classified materials don't care about Trump. So this is just the whole political, the left-right paradigm. But it says here, a redacted copy of the FBI affidavit used to justify the August 8th search on former President Donald J. Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate was unsealed Friday, revealing details of the federal government's efforts to recover classified documents, including top-secret information. The 36-page affidavit, much of which was heavily redacted, said that in mid-May, FBI agents conducted a preliminary review of the contents of 15 boxes Trump returned to the National Archives from his Florida property in January. So they've had these things since January and identified documents with classified markings in 14 of the 15 boxes. The affidavit said that the agents found 184 unique documents that had classification markings. It stated 25 documents were marked top secret, 67 documents were marked as confidential, and 92 as secret. They got all these little codes, these, According to the affidavit, agents observed markings denoting various control systems designed to protect various types of sensitive information, including markings that designate intelligence gathered by clandestine human sources, such as a report by CIA officers or someone who works for the National Intelligence Agency. You remember that when the Cheney administration, the Bush-Cheney administration, several members leaked the name of Valerie Plame, who was an agent for the CIA, which burned all of her sources and put foreign sources of hers in jeopardy, and it was a complete nightmare. And they let that thing go completely, right? Dick Cheney totally worked the intelligence community. He was at war kind of with the CIA and pressuring them to come up with, information that would support an illegal war. I mean, one of the worst things you could do as a person is to fabricate information to make the case for a war that kills 1 million people in a foreign country that turns out to be completely false. And the intelligence community was pressured to support them. And you can see that in the movie, the movie about this. And yet they didn't have any of these things. The release of the FBI affidavit came after the U.S. Magistrate Judge Bruce Reinhardt ruled Thursday that the document could be unsealed after the Department of Justice submitted proposed redactions. And so the probable cause says here earlier this week that he found probable cause that the evidence, the judge who put out the subpoena, probable cause that the evidence of multiple federal crimes would be found once they got to Mar-a-Lago and started to look through it. And so here, this is big news. And these are, anti-Trump websites, MSNBC and Huffington Post. Trump affidavit out, Feds suspected obstruction evidence. So this is a little bit different take on it. Mar-a-Lago search affidavit, Trump was insecurely storing most sensitive intel at the club. The heavily redacted document lays out the justification of the Justice Department, justice provided to a judge for permission to search for and seize highly classified documents in an FBI raid. The sworn affidavit that prosecutors used to persuade a federal judge to let them search Trump's Mar-a-Lago home earlier this month says that the classified documents would likely be found there, as well as evidence of obstruction, according to a redacted version released Friday. There is probable cause to believe that the additional documents that contain classified NDI or that the president records subject to record retention required currently remain on the premises. There's also probable cause to believe the evidence of obstruction will be found at the premises. Then this was the only kind of difference here. They have not been handled in the appropriate manner or stored in an appropriate location. Accordingly, we ask that the room at Mar-a-Lago where the documents have been stored be secured, and that all the boxes that were moved from the White House to Mar-a-Lago, along with other items in the room, be preserved in that room in their current condition until further notice. So he handed over documents in January, and they had till now, June, to go in there and get the documents, ask him for the documents. And in August, they decided to raid his home. And that makes it look like the FBI was against Trump, which, there's other evidence that supports it, which is all a part of this narrative because they knew how this would play. There's nothing here that makes any sense. What he did was taking the documents is, wrong and illegal or whatever it is, right? And the only issue is, did other people do this? And yes, they did. Other presidents, other people have done this, have taken these documents home with them or whatever it might be. Hillary Clinton being the most, obvious example. And they weren't treated the same way, which is Republicans are going to see, and they're going to, and they're going to flock back to Trump because now it validates a lot of Trump's claims that the FBI had a plot against them. And now we have this. McCarthy blasts big tech after Zuckerberg bombshell. So there's this exchange between Joe Rogan and Mark Zuckerberg, which this is where it comes back to Joe Rogan's podcast versus Meghan Markle's.
Like, there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York
we
Post.
have that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
I mean, basically, the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different.
Okay, so him just saying that, right? The FBI, and he says later they didn't specify the Hunter Biden thing, but it was at that time that they did it, right? And the FBI knew about Hunter Biden's laptop, knew about it being real, and they chose to suppress it before the election. And they were told, agents were told, that we don't want to determine the election, so we're not gonna go after this or publish this or make it public, because they knew it would end any chance of Jojo Magoo winning. And so the FBI made a decision to sabotage the election, which is, with all the talk of the big lie, and, I showed the montage of the big lie and how all this stuff, and Trump's crazy and the people around him are crazy. And yet there was the FBI issue where those two guys were the couple that were cheating on their spouses, whatever their names, don't care, don't tell me, don't need to know. I could look it up right now, I'm not gonna. But they, they were talking smack about Trump in their recordings, and they were also integral towards, their political views were integral towards Trump being set up with some other false BS, right? So we know the intelligence community didn't like Trump. At least that's what we think, But now we see that they're helping him out with all this information. Now the Hunter Biden stuff's coming out, right? Now they're validating the Hunter Biden stuff. And now they're releasing all these things about, they raided Trump's house, which helps Trump, right? And so this is like where it's so greasy, where it seems like they're validating Trump's story, but why now? And why even do that? They don't have to. Then Mark Zuckerberg goes on, Joe Rogan, and he also says the FBI, which had full knowledge that the Hunter Biden thing was real, was putting pressure on social media not to allow it to be a determining factor in the 2020 election. And then all the bogus stuff about Russia, when all the media was on Hillary's side. The real media, the big-time media, was on Hillary's side. All this Trump had is some social media, and it wasn't the Russian social media. It wasn't Russia Today like they'd like you to think. It was Americans. And so they were repressing social media, and, how'd that all play out, right? And then they, eventually admit you're right. Like, I've been through this so much personally and seen it so much in general in the truth community, where you say things and they call you crazy, or they call you names, or they dismiss you and laugh at you. And then, some years go by and then they admit you're right, but they never admit you're right. They own up to it in a way where they say, oh yeah, they pretend like they never came out and were against you, and they never validate you and say, oh wow, you guys were right. They never say that, right? They say it without saying it. They admit to it without admitting to it. But this has happened time and time again. And so let's go to this. Tucker Carlson cuts into live Biden speech in an attempt to show mental decline, but it backfires. How can it backfire? Like, you guys are still claiming that Jojo Magoo doesn't have any mental issues. The guy is turning into a corpse right in front of our eyes, and he's had so many issues where he clearly has some sort of dementia. He's confused, he's lost, he's just, he's decrepit, and he's been this way for a number of years through the whole electoral process. Anybody with any kind of skills, ability to read people, would say that Jojo Magoo is deteriorated mentally, and he was bad in the election. He was wandering around stage. He called people names. He called the guy fat and Jack and challenged people to push-up contests. I mean, he was clearly, he's not functioning on a high level. And so, like, why would you even pretend like that's the case? So earlier in the day, YouTube recommended this to me. This guy who's soon to be out of a job, right? CNN is going to try to fire all these people. But who are they going to replace them with? Because they're still going to suck, right? Like, I hope they don't fire them because I got to learn all their names. Like, like when I'm mocking them, I have to learn how to, it's a whole group of new people to learn how to mock. They're the same. They'll be the same. They'll just be, new people that suck just as bad as the old ones. But this happened.
Document Day, Ellie. Bring us up to speed with what documents we have seen and haven't seen in the one today.
Yeah, John.
Okay, so this was earlier today. So they end up doing this here.
Thank you for explaining this. You should be a teacher.
I'll give it a shot.
All right, thanks.
They're funny. What incredible content. Look at that banter. Look at how funny this guy is. No wonder you guys are looking for new jobs. Like, and don't look in the comedy world.
While we wait to see what happens there, let's
go laugh it up.
bring in attorney and contributing
It's so funny. She has to laugh.
columnist at the Washington Post, George Conway. George,
This guy, right? Like, another dumpling.
thanks for joining us this morning. I wonder if you were surprised by how quickly the judge moved here.
No, not at all. I think the judge was going to show deference to the Justice Department's redactions no matter what. And I think also the Justice Department, as Ellie just said, was going to give the judge enough to feel so that the judge could feel that he was providing.
Like this guy who, if he was a Democrat and Kellyanne Conway was a Democrat and he bailed on her and, sabotaged his wife the way that, like a Democratic wife, the feminists would be up in arms, right? Kellyanne Conway was, Trump's a disaster in his own way, whatever it is. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't have any, political fight. But, like, the people they roll out on the left, right? Like this guy, how does this guy get on TV is what I'm saying.
Providing some information to the public. And if you think about it, as Ellie points out, there are a lot of things that can be put out there that wouldn't affect the investigation. Generic information about how documents are classified, background information like that. And then the statutory language, it will be interesting to see if...
I guess he's a lawyer, right? Because he speaks like one. But, he's just, like, unlikable. See what's happening here.
Marks through it. And I think the one interesting part about it will be how long...
Look, they're getting rid of Breonna Keeler and trying her, Caitlin Collins. Maybe Brianna's got a vacation in air quotes. Right? They're trying some new things at CNN.
Even a semblance of a defense here. They haven't. It's been almost 3 weeks now since the search warrant was executed, and they haven't articulated a single reason why he should have been allowed to take these documents, why he had them.
See, the argument isn't why he took the documents or should he, because he shouldn't. It was illegal. The argument is, why was he treated differently than Hillary Clinton and other people? That's the argument. Hillary Clinton seemed to do something much worse. She set up a private server, which was not secured. And the Democrats had, they got hacked. And classified materials and other things were leaked. John Podesta, he wrote a paper for Obama saying it was about governmental cybersecurity. He was put in charge of a website, internet security. And then he gave his password. They asked him for his password and he gave it. That's how he was hacked, right? Somebody wrote him on Gmail that he needed to give his password, and he did. And then they hacked the DNC. And so, like, this is, nothing as far as we know was ever put out by Trump. He wasn't giving the documents to Putin or something like that. He wasn't, no one got a hold of the documents. He didn't do anything that was other than possess the documents. And they could have asked for the documents back, which there's no evidence they did that. He gave them a bunch of documents and they said, oh, he must have more. And we don't trust him, so we're just going to wait 6 months and go invade his house. which ultimately just helps him. And their argument he shouldn't have the documents is the same argument the Republicans had against Hillary, right? And so all of this stuff is just, it looks so fake. It looks so contrived and staged. Like, why are they doing this now? It's just like it's a part of a show that's not really believable. Like, it pulls you back to the idea that, oh, this is all fake, right? What I've learned from over the years in terms of everything that we watch of this thing I call the show is that it is more and more all just psychological operation, right? Like, there's information put out there, or there's events that happen, and it is all based in trying to get a reaction from people, getting people to choose sides. I mean, everything is so manipulative, it's hard to take any of it seriously or really care about any of it, right? They're trying to push you in one direction or another, getting you to, gathering information on you all the while, right? Getting your reaction through whatever spying is happening. My wife and I watched this show, The Rehearsal, on HBO. And it's kind of funny. There's good jokes in it. Kind of weird, very weird. Kind of very creative, but it's just whatever it is. That's not the reason I'm bringing it up. But the day after we started watching it, I received a recommendation from my YouTube feed about the comedian who created the show, whatever his name is, Nathan or something like that. And I wasn't even sure. I looked at it, and then I had to go check the show to make sure it was the same thing. So my phone was, they must have heard me watching the show. My phone must have been nearby me when we were watching the show. That's the only explanation, because it was on DirecTV. And somehow the information got back to YouTube. And, voila, there was a recommended video. I mean, that's how much information they're gathering. I've seen this over and over again. My wife are talking about something, and then I'll go to Facebook, and there'll be an ad recommending this, or I'll go to Amazon, right? I'll be talking about a saw, or the tool things are a little, less suspicious, because I often buy tools or look at things like that. But we'll be talking about something we don't normally talk about, and then all of a sudden there'll be an ad or something for it on Facebook or Amazon or YouTube. I mean, they're sharing so much data, and there's so much data being absorbed. And so they put out an event. It's like an experiment. You're being experimented on. And then you react to the event, and they have, all that data about your psychological makeup, where you are personally and things. And so that's how I see all these things. I mean, I just, I don't care, because, the beginning I thought, oh, wow, this is, there'd be some symbolism or whatever, hidden subliminal things or Illuminati stuff or whatever, went on, all these different, like we were finding stuff, right? We're on a treasure hunt, But now I'm like, it's all just a big show, which I've said for years, but even more so, it's a big show that has a psychological operation at its base, and it's all about creating reactions and then gathering data. And, that's all it's about. Like, none of the other things matter. Our reaction to the beast, in terms of our personal growth and development, you might as well be as happy as possible, because reacting to these things is, you don't have any power to change them, and they don't care about your reaction. And so it's just being, played, being, manipulated. I mean, it's not real. Like, none of it's real. And, like, that's just a metaphor for life on Earth as well, because, that in itself is an illusion. And certainly all the stuff in the beast and the media and the government and entertainment, all that stuff is an illusion as well. See, it's easy to feel like when you saw the way that they handled Trump. So the way that it looked in terms of right when COVID was happening, Trump had record good numbers on employment. So employment was going well, and the economy was going well, but it wasn't going well. In terms of what we saw, it was going well, but the economy had already collapsed years ago. So it was looking like the economy was doing great, and Trump was assured a re-election. He was assured a second term. And then they used COVID, and Trump got worked by COVID. he said a lot of stupid things, and they hid Jojo Magoo. They manipulated the outcome so Bernie wouldn't get the nomination. I mean, this is what it appeared to have happened, right? And then right before the election, there would have been an October surprise, which was Hunter Biden. And it seems so unfair that they hid it. The FBI hid it away. And is it Strauss and the woman, whatever her name was, don't tell me, I don't care, you don't need to know. But it came out the FBI was against Trump. I mean, all those things, right? You know, to people who are on the right. And the people on the left were like, oh, we hate Trump. It's going to kill this country. He's going to be a monarch. He's going to try to be a king. He's going to not step down. And he's going to ruin this country. I mean, all the things that they believe, right? They were all, you know, that was their narrative. And the people on the right were told that, you know, that, I mean, they saw Jojo Magoo and they looked at Trump being a shoo-in, and then the night of the election, it looked like Trump won, and then they counted the absentee ballots, which seems suspicious, and then the way Trump handled it and the big event that happened, you know, at the end and all these things, right? And then the narrative became Trump tried to steal the election, and that just pissed people off on the right and even people in the truth community because they were like, oh, we see through that, right? But it's all there to gather some sort of emotional reaction. And then there's various iterations over the last couple of years of them pushing this narrative of, you know, Jojo Magoo's not senile when we know he is, right? Like, you can see it, you know. And then, you know, the stuff about Trump and Trump still being the center of the universe, even though he's deplatformed and they're investigating him. And, you know, it looks like they're, you know, at some point they're going to put him in jail, which they won't, or, you know, convict him of a crime, which would make it impossible for him to run. And then all of a sudden the FBI just, for no real good reason, invades his house, you know, goes into his house and goes after these documents and gives Trump a big boost. And then it comes out the FBI suppressed the Hunter Biden stuff. I mean, all of a sudden the narrative has shifted. And it's, you know, backing all the way, things that people on the right believe. Like people on the right, like, I knew it. I said it all along. Even though you've been hearing how wrong you are over this period of time. And it's all just fake. Like, it's just, none of it's real. It's just, you know, they're just a game they're playing, and they're just, you know, playing your emotions like a stringed instrument, right? Like a violin. And so it's just, you know, it's not real. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.